Hey, I'm Joe. This is Mike,
Hi, welcome to Solution Base.
and we're back this week to talk about the result of the choices that we spoke about last week. And just to recap, what Solution Base is our goal here is, and our mission is to help people become better people, individually, one person at a time, which obviously in turn is going to create a better world for us. And that's what we'd like to do because we know right now it's not popular to be good. It's not popular to be self-reliant. It's not popular to take responsibility for stuff. But we're here to change that through positive reinforcement.
Right, and whenever we talk about responsibility, usually it's you think of taking responsibility for your actions, and it's always kind of seen as a negative sense when you take responsibility for something bad. And it's really not at all. It's when you take ownership, then you have a chance to grow. Rather than laying blame, that's the alternative. And so whenever you lay blame, you're shifting all the power to make a change and to prevent that from the future onto somebody or something else, and that's just not productive.
And the easiest way for us to do that, we found, is to show the example. We're going to get into a natural conversation, just like we did last time, and just like any other episode that you're going to see, because we want to teach you how to put these things into practice. I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, here's a good way to go about things, here's a good way to do things. But if we don't show you how to do it, most of the time that's where people stop. They're like, okay, that's great, and they get all excited, and then when the application comes into play, that's when they're kind of like, oh, well, how do I do this? And when the doubt sets in, then they're, oh, well, then I'm not going to do it. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. We try to teach through examples, through practice, as opposed to theory. You know, a lot of times when we go to school, we learn about theory a lot, and this isn't just the theory of becoming a better person. This is something that we're working on every day, and it's something we're always working towards, and we're sharing that with you in hopes that we can both inspire you to do it yourself and to show you how we're handling it, to show you a possibility of how you can self-improve as well.
Yeah, and the best part about it is we're by no means here to say, hey, we're experts at this, because we're all experts at it. As a matter of fact, you're an expert at it, you just don't know it yet. We're going to teach you how to do it. So just pay attention to our conversation. It's going to be a natural conversation. Glean any points that you can from it that you feel that could benefit you. And at the end, hopefully you write down some questions, and then we'll give you some information so you can send it to us, because our goal here too is to interact with you and anybody around the world that's having these issues, because if we can do that, then we can collectively find these solutions that are going to help us move forward to create a better environment for everybody, hence the name Solution Base. So we're going to get into it.
Definitely.
One of the things I know that we talked about last week was choices, and something that I feel, in my personal opinion, that I've learned myself in doing this is that when I can accept responsibility for the situation, and the funny part about it is, Mike, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, is that every situation people want to blame something, right? There's always, like, here's a great example. The news.
Yes.
Can't stand it. I think it's garbage. I think it's more entertainment than actual news.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a great example. I meant to tell you this, and then I'll get back into what I was saying. I was out running errands and got in the elevator and had my earphones on.
Okay.
And I just finished talking to you. And for my iPhone, so they look like, they look like earphones. They look like earphones. So that would be for your iPod. So I'm sure a lot of people assume was listening to my radio, right? But here's the thing: this older lady. It's so funny how generational things are, as far as the media, as far as news, and as far as just a lot of traits that we do different in generations, right? So this lady looked like she was probably mid to late 70s. Okay. And first thing that I say, like always, you know me, I'm like, hey, good morning, how are you today? You having a good day? And she's like, oh yeah, thank you, I'm having a good day too. Just engage in a conversation, right? And the first thing she says, she goes, oh, hey, did you read the paper recently? And I'm like, no. She's like, did you see it on the news? And I'm like, no. She's like, oh yeah, you know what's going on with those earphones, kids are wearing them, they're having hearing problems, all these things. And as she's saying this, I'm in the moment recognizing her generation and how her generation, that generation, my grandma's generation, your grandma's generation, believe the news. They always have.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's how they were informed
Mhm.
in the old days, because they didn't have the media mediums that we have now.
Mhm.
So it was amazing to see her face, like honestly, with conviction, believing whatever she saw,
Right.
and asking me if I really. And I was like, no. And she's like, really? She couldn't understand that I didn't see the same thing and that I didn't care. And I was like, oh, okay. She's like, yeah, it doesn't bother you. I'm like, no.
Right.
And
They put all, like you said, the older generation put so much faith into the media
Hmm.
and government is always doing the right thing and being correct.
Yeah.
That when they see that, because that's how it's always been, that's how they've been raised.
Sure.
Or you can talk to someone my age or younger, and you tell them, oh, that news story was actually false. They just be like, yeah, no, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we understand what the media is, but I think that's a lot of the battle that we have in our society. But that's a whole nother ballgame. Anyways, back to this. The reason why I was bringing that up, though,
Mm-hmm.
is because the media, especially news, is one of the biggest, I think, crutches that people use for the reasons and doing a lot of things.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, they'll say, oh, the biggest one, the economy,
That's what I was just thinking.
right? I mean, that's the
economy.
biggest one. If there's literally no news and no newspapers,
Mhm.
who knows about a recession?
Right, exactly. I mean, my mom, who lives up the hill, whenever she comes down and she visits, and she goes, it doesn't look like there's a recession here. I see people in the mall, I see people spending money.
Yeah.
Every business seems to be booming in this area.
Yeah.
I don't know what this whole recession is talking about. And so that just goes to show that it really is. And it's funny because you can see the chain reaction to it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get too far on that. I want to keep it to responsibility, and this does relate to responsibility
It
in the
does.
sense that you have to take personal responsibility to find out the information for yourself.
Yeah.
But because if you make a judgment call based on what somebody else says or what you heard on the news, and then something bad comes from that, the first thing you're going to come with is saying, well, that's because I heard it on the news.
Exactly.
And again, you're laying blame on that.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I heard it on the news and that's why I had done it, but I realized I didn't have to do that. It's okay. I mean, we do this a lot of times. Is you have that initial reaction, like, oh, that's why I did it, because that's just how you've been programmed, how you've done it your entire life. But then you have to not, continue with that and say, but I realized that that's my choice that I made,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of reasons behind it. I still made that choice to do that, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna take responsibility for making that action, and so I can fix it and prevent it from happening in the future.
Yeah, so I love what you're saying, because you're saying, like, okay, you have to do somewhat of a self-diagnosis and be able to look at yourself and understand you when these things happen. Now, what's funny about that is that a lot of people, even at that level, dismiss the responsibility because they'll say, well, maybe I need to go see somebody. Maybe I need somebody else to tell me that this is how I'm feeling or how I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody with a piece of paper that's framed on the wall.
Right.
Right? Here's where I don't get this. I mean, I do, but I'm saying that for effect.
Mm-hmm.
Is that you will not take the action in self-diagnosis, but who knows you better than you?
Right, and the thing is, you go to any good psychologist or therapist who's going to help you through your problems.
Yeah.
They don't tell you what to do. They don't give you advice. They simply ask the questions to get you to come up with your own answers.
Exactly. And then you pay them $200 an hour.
Exactly. and I think what happens is a lot of times people say, well, that's what my therapist said, because the therapist asked the questions to get them to have that response to find
Sure.
the answer. And then so they're taking it from in their eyes, the therapist, really it's their advice.
Right.
So if you can come up with your own questions, then you're ahead of the game.
Yeah, and the thing is, and here's, okay, so in my opinion, this is a self-empowering thing. It's a thing about having inner strength in yourself, because when you do that, I mean, people commend that too. Here's the amazing part about it. When you do that and you're like, oh, I went and saw a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, wow, that's really good that you decided to do that. A lot of people are too proud or blah, blah, blah to go do that. And I'm like, no, it's not. Because now you're actually saying, hey, I give up now. I can't handle this. So I'm gonna go to some other expert that can handle this feeling and be able to tell me about me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's just another level of shifting the responsibility. Of saying, okay, I clearly can't handle this because this picture doesn't look like this picture. Society says I should be this picture, but here's me and it's not. So I'm going to go to this expert so he can help me get this to match this mold.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, you're not going to fix the problem ever. And people will say, I've heard this before, I'm like, yeah, but it's normal, you know, Donald Trump goes to psychologists or there's sports psychiatrists. Or, yeah, because everybody's crazy, that's why. It's, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, it doesn't matter how much money you have. You know, you can be a billionaire nut like Steve Jobs, which I think is amazing, but he's crazy, right? Or you could be a broke nut and be homeless. It doesn't matter. You're both crazy. Just one's got more money than the other one. You know, so people use that too. Like, oh well, you know, it's admirable that somebody like, you know, Steve Jobs or whatever, he goes to a psychiatrist, psychologist. It's admirable that somebody with that amount of money can do that too. It's like, well, it's not so much that it's admirable, it's they're crazy too. But somebody like that recognizes it a lot of times, but they still fall short too. Does it matter? Make sense what I'm saying? Because the people that I feel, like Ricky Williams when we saw that, right?
Right.
That was an example. I mean, that was an amazing example to me of a human being saying, okay, look, all these extenuating circumstances in my world are not me, and I don't like it. So I'm going to spend time with me, figure me out so I can change me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's, people don't understand that is where the change happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everyone always looks for external changes. If I get that car, I'll be happy. If I meet this person, I'll be happy. If I get this, I'll be happy. If I get that, I'll be happy. And those things can, the way I look at it is those things build upon your happiness. But it's not what makes you happy.
No.
What makes you happy is your decision to be happy.
Yeah.
You don't need anything else other than the decision to be happy.
That's it. And it's totally your choice. And the thing is that, like you said too, out of being able to do that, a lot of other stuff starts to happen that's positive in your life.
It does, because you change your outlook on life. So you start, and it's not so much that you change outlook and that you see things from a different angle. I mean, that happens as well, but different things start to happen for you.
Yeah.
People like to be around people who are happy and positive. So you start meeting better people. You start meeting the types of people that you want to meet.
Yeah.
You know, and things it just looks up and just builds upon itself exponentially.
Yeah.
But it all starts with that inner change where you take responsibility and say, you know, hey, I put myself in the situation and I decided to be unhappy about it. Or, you know, I decided to put myself in a horrible situation. I'm not going to put myself in that situation instead. I'm going to put myself in this better situation, and then things start to build up again.
Yep.
But if you're saying that, if you're always playing the victim, saying, well, I was in this situation and I couldn't help it, and that's just how it happened, and life's horrible, you can never make that change because you're always putting the blame on somebody else.
Yeah.
You need to take that ownership and that responsibility and shift it, and then you can start to grow.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the tough part. That's what we're talking about, right? I mean, that's where people struggle, because it's so easy in our society. It's so easy the way we grow up or whatever, because we kind of get taught that way. Isn't it funny how, okay, so you're a child, right? And when you're a kid, you get in trouble at school or by your parents. Be honest. Tell the truth.
Right.
Be responsible. No, don't tell on Johnny. Don't be a tattletale on Johnny because you did it. So just worry about you. And then it changes as you get older. Then it's like, no, dude, that's not just you. You start hearing that. You know, oh, well, yeah, you did that, but man, maybe it was this or that.
Right.
Right? Or maybe it was something else, or whatever the case is. It's just funny because the reason I keep coming back to being a child is because when you're a child is when you get taught the reality of life. That's when you're learning and seeing the reality of life. When you're uncandid, right? Or you're not candid and you're just honest about everything. You see everything differently. You just see it for what it is because there's nothing else. There's like no prejudice, no BS in your head.
Right.
You know, when somebody's like, hey, this is this, you're like, okay. And if someone else says no, it's not, you're like, no, yeah, it is.